Welcome to the Mucked Up My Self-Care podcast.
I'm Jill from New York.
And I'm Linda from Tasmania.
We are two moms from opposite sides of the world who are living, demonstrating, and helping moms across the world build their self-care asset bank.
Ready to dive in? Messy, interrupted, imperfect, and most of all mucked up. Let's get going. Hello, Jill. Oh, snap. Both into hello today. We're here.
We are.
Yep. I'm probably in a little bit of a lull after sticky note time weekend. It's both empowering and energizing, while also a lot of mental decision making and all of that stuff that comes with it. It's like twofold. Twofold. So, shall we get into highs and lows?
Let's do it. Are you ready to go with yours?
I am. Yep.
Great. How about you start us off today?
Okay. So we were just talking before we hit record. My low is sleep and disrupted sleep with kiddos and working out what's what with sleep patterns and habits, and sometimes it's really hard to work out the genuine nature of a problem. And I say that carefully because we have one situation at the moment where we have one who's getting up frequently, and the older of the four, one of the older of the four, and he seems to be in a habit of thinking or feeling like he is very scared, but not exhibiting signs of that, not being able to tell me what else is going on. And I feel like I have covered nearly every single need that might be missing here. And still, we are in a cycle of having 2 or 3 wake-ups for, some very challenging reasons, or not even working out why that's happening and what that means. And he is very unhappy if I don't put him back to bed. And so we're just working out what is going on. And everybody's quite tired because of it. So, yeah, it's challenging. My high, gosh, I have a few. It's been a lovely sunny day here. So we got out to the water and the park and pre-kinder and just enjoyed an almost day off with the kiddos. So that was nice as well. Got Alex a haircut, all sorts of stuff that needed to be done. It's been nice.
Nice. Oh, sunny days are good. It's actually been raining a lot here the last 2 weeks. So I am really happy for a sunny day today. Let's see, my highs and lows. I think the low is just so much stuff has been happening all at once, it feels like. So it's finally kind of like pieces are coming to an end. And it's kind of like, now what do I do? How do I get back to where I was before all the craziness started of all these things happening at the same time? So I think it's still kind of a good thing that we're in the summer season where I'm not working as much, so I can kind of have this on-ramp over the next couple of weeks getting back into school. And this actually might come up later in the conversation, but like thinking of August as a Sunday and just prepping for what comes next as we are in August now. But my high is that I think everything is kind of ending also. Because my dad has finally come home from the hospital after 2 weeks of being in there trying to figure out all his illnesses related to the chemo and radiation he's been receiving. So that means his last treatment is going to be scheduled soon, and then we can be done with that and move on and see what the next step is for him there. And hopefully we're in a good place. So that's my high right now is that finished, and hopefully finished for good.
Yeah, coming to a close in some ways, but there's obviously still some adjustments that have to be made, and some, in some ways, some grief that has to be worked through, I guess, because you go through events like that and it does no doubt change you and your family, and obviously your dad as well, but that ripples out and affects all sorts of people at the same time. You can't not be affected and changed by that. And that doesn't mean you just wake up the next day and you're like, right, that's done, tick, and on we go. So there's a lot more complexities to it than that.
Oh, yes. But like you had mentioned, we both went through sticky note time this weekend.
Yes, we did.
My original sticky note time got disheveled, so I ended up joining you with yours. And we both got through some decision making to set ourselves up for some good success coming up for this month, this quarter.
Yeah, exactly. And for those of you who might be joining us for this episode, or maybe haven't come across the sticky note time process before, it's where we're planning for our quarter and putting our priorities into perspective, and that involves not only the business side of things but also life, personal, emotional, spiritual, and it all means that, especially for me, I can put it down into more achievable pieces and sometimes look at it all in front of me and go, well, hang on a sec. Do I really want to do that right now? Or look at how much other stuff I've got going on. Is that the best idea?
Yeah. The process helps you determine your priorities based on value and then time for your life, and then helps us really, like, I think, practice telling our calendar what we're doing instead of letting the calendar tell us what we're doing. So I think that helps us a lot as we've come through this podcast, figuring out where we're fitting self-care into our days every day, being aware of when we need more self-care because of lows and energy or bandwidth, meltiness, child interrupting our podcast time.
All that fun stuff. And I think one of the biggest things with that setup, if you like, and allowing to see all of the things in front of you, one of the biggest benefits for me is being able to unpack my brain onto a page rather than, because I was carrying a lot of it around, in thinking, oh gosh, I'm going to forget that, or I need to do that as well as this, as well as every single other thing that was on the to-do list. And that was actually more emotionally draining than I realized until I started to do less of it. Yeah.
I like having a to-do list for my shopping or my planning to pack for something. Like when we go camping, what is my to-do list the day before? Like, what do I got to get done? My to-do list does not grow every day with all the things that I have to try to remember between the business, between childcare, between housework. And I just divided it up between different stickies on where they need to be placed. Gives me the opportunity to focus on just the things that need to be done pretty much in the moment. Which is absurd. It sounds absurd. It really does sound absurd, but it's been a change for me in that crazy that goes in our heads of like, oh my God, I have so much to get done and I don't know where to start. I just start with my first sticky or what's on the calendar already, and then we go to the next sticky. Or then that's it. That's it.
And in many ways, it's a form of self-care, right? If we're increasing our awareness of how much we have on our plate, or increasing our awareness of when our energy is low, and then also increasing our awareness of what we specifically want to get done, I think that's a form of looking after ourselves and making sure that our goals are still achievable while also on track at the same time. Yeah. Do you have self-care on stickies?
I don't have self-care on stickies because I don't know what to do when until it's like the day of, and then I'm like, this is how we need to do our self-care today. So
Yep.
That is one thing I don't have. And then the other times I actually try to calendar it in. So
Yep.
Like
haircuts. Haircuts a big one for me. Haircuts. I think I did write down like book eyebrows on stickies. So that's the sort of thing I wanted to get done. So those sort of things do actually make an appearance. Make an appearance on the sticky notes from time to time. Well, especially I think as I look at what I've got going on for the quarter, and if it's all business heavy, I'm like, well, hang on a sec. How am I going to also make sure that I'm not just completely burning out or not taking care of myself in those moments?
Definitely. Ouch. I get smacked over here. Stop it, please. Oh my God. Well, no.
While Jill's getting this slap around, I'm just gonna move in, because I think if we're talking about setting ourselves up for success, a lot of that means letting go. And we have to let go of what a podcast recording should or could look like right now for Jill. She actually just has to let go. That's part of setting ourselves up, I think. And
big time. Trusting
the process, even though the process might take a lot longer sometimes with children around. Trusting the process. I think concentrating on an outcome but not getting attached to an outcome is also a big part of that. Like if we're getting really attached to a certain outcome or expectation, that can be really hard. Like ideally, we wouldn't want to be slapped around while we're recording a podcast, but right now that's easier said than done because we're dealing with a 4-year-old who is a toddler and who has no idea what is going on for. Well, yes, he does have an idea because he's been here for 69 episodes now. He does have an idea. Sorry, I take that back. Sorry. But obviously he's got his own agenda and his own ways that he wants to set himself up right now for his day. Yep. And they're different to yours and different to mine and different to the Mucked Up My Self-Care podcast. And so
let me ask you this, Linda. Because my 4-year-old does like to try and set up our day for us without any consideration for me, I do try to teach him about like tournamenting, which one's doing. Do you bring that into with your kids when it comes to having them around so that you can set your guys' day up for success?
Yeah, especially when it comes to some of the housework chores, so with the older two especially. So I think one moment that I was tournamenting with them the other day, it was like, well, do you want to unpack the dishwasher or wash all these dishes by hand? Because either way, the dishes still have to get done. Now, they're looking for leadership in that time. They're looking for parenting and direction, even though the resistance is really, really true in the fact that they don't see doing dishes always as something that is successful for them, because it's a pain point. It's not something that they're really thinking has a great benefit until they get in and do it and then realize after that. So it's working out little ways which I can give them alternatives. And I don't know that I call it tournamenting with them. I probably use it more as like, well, you can do this or that. Which one is worse for you right now? And you can go to bed early and then wake up late in the morning and not get to school on time. Or you can make sure that you're trying to get yourself a really good rest and sleep, and then have a less stressful morning, time to eat your breakfast without gulping it down really, really fast, time to get to school on time to relax. And so it's hard for them with their current brain development to see, unless it's right there in the moment. They can't always see the next morning or the next day or the next hour, especially when they're 4 as well. So that's, you need to probably pick and choose depending on your age of your children, depending on the tasks at hand, depending on what other emotions are going on. Maybe they're hungry, maybe they need to use a potty, maybe they need to, like all of those, if all of those other needs aren't necessarily met or at least acknowledged, it can be really hard to tournament for them in those moments as well.
Oh, 100%. I do like that. Would you rather do this now or that now? Or would you rather do it this way or that way? And I even bring it to myself, I think, in the times of where we're coming down to, well, is this self-care going to be better in this moment? Or is this self-care going to be better for me in this moment? Because it really comes down to just making it simple for us to make the decision instead of harder. Yeah. And I think we can learn a lot from our toddlers and helping them make these decisions.
Very much.
And we lose our patience over having to do it that way, because we're like, why can't we just make the decision? Or why can't you just make a decision like that? But we're missing the point of it going back to the simple of, well, what's better for Ray?
And I think there are times when they need a direction much more than a decision, and that takes practice on learning, well, is this time critical? Is this the wrong time of day? If it's late at night, are we then trying to get them to tournament and decide? It's like a dead end street. Really difficult for them to be able to have the right headspace to do that.
Right. And it comes down to us being aware of not just our own melty or low bandwidth, it's everyone's, because then that, and half the time they're feeding off of us just as we're feeding off of them and their energy and where they're at. We know how hard it is to make a decision when we're low on bandwidth or when we're emotional. So, how do we expect anyone else to be making those decisions when they're like that after a tantrum or after a missed nap? And, not so. The grace that we give our children, we also need to remember to give ourselves. And, we didn't get a nap today. We are super exhausted. Maybe it is time to put this in this spot instead of something else, so we can get that energy back for a little bit and help us have a, at least a decent rest of our time that we have awake, or at least get ready to have a good sleep, because sometimes our sleep can be affected by what's happened with our day and our energy. So I know you know that very well, Linda.
Indeed, yes, I do. And I have another question, just as we start to wrap up and all that sort of stuff. If we're talking about self-care success, what does that look like for you?
I just thinking of it right off the bat, like setting us up for self-care success, that means actually accomplishing something of self-care. But is that really as simple as it is?
I watched this.
I see.
No, you need to watch
Oh,
it.
I'm also talking.
One,
Is it also just being able to have just one day of self-care, even if we expected to have 5 days of self-care? Yes, I see it. Thank you. Is it at least doing self-care with our child, even though we wanted to do self-care by ourselves, and at least getting something done? I think it's just being able to say that our energy was replenished at some point from doing an activity or a thing, or the lack of an activity that was focusing on our own care.
Yeah.
What about for you, Linda? Are you seeing it in the same way, a different twist?
Can we go somewhere else?
I want to echo a lot of what you've said, but I also think for me, part of it is my head stuff, my mental health as well. So self-care success depends a lot on how I'm feeling about it. So if I'm doing self-care but still feeling really wired or agitated or frustrated or tired even, or a lot of those heavier feelings and emotions, then the self-care is going to be less successful for me, because the amount of effort and time it takes to reset is going to be greater. And I'm not saying that self-care needs to be short and sharp and to the point, but I know that if I am in reality, I am often not able to sit down and have a bath for 2 hours, which might be required if I am tired or agitated or wired or stressed or any of those things. So for me, self-care success looks a lot more like how I'm going into it and then how I'm coming out of it at the other side.
So is it that your expectations are not being met makes it unsuccessful?
No, I don't think so. I think it's more about the setup in lead up to that self-care. So if I'm stressed,
replenished of energy, or too
agitated
in order to be filled, you can't be so empty in order to be refilled. But it doesn't work then. Yeah.
That's when you just actually need to go to sleep for 10 hours. And
I
could feel like that's it. Like really hard reset. So if I'm really worked up or stressed and then try to be like, right, I'll just do some self-care, it's probably going to be much less successful than if I've maybe planned ahead for it, or been outside already today, or been to the gym. My self-care is going to be much more successful because I've done the steps towards it rather than trying to go from 0 to 100.
So you need to have a good setup in order to have good self-care results. Yeah.
Which isn't always I'm definitely not perfect in that sense at all.
Yeah. I got that. Well,
yes. Now you've got quiet.
Yeah,
got a little more quiet.
he's walked away finally. Oh my god. So finding childcare sometimes is that successful setup there for me. But that can also be like the spot where we get very confused is how do we set ourselves up to get that? So if you want to continue that conversation with us, and maybe we can get some more ideas from you if you are finding good ways to set up your self-care for the day and being successful with it, or if you need a few more tips maybe from Linda on how she's recognizing how she can set herself up. Our email's in the show notes. Reach us. It's muckedupmyselfcarepodcast@gmail.com. Again, we also have our list of 10 super back to basic when we first needed the help on what self-care was list, which may help you get set up for success as well. So reach out to us for that conversation. We're happy to chat.
Yeah. All right. So until next week.
We hope you can unstuck your muck.
Bye.
Bye.